Okay, my thought today is on reinventing your mind. Isn't that a wonderful topic? Reinventing your mind, especially in this pandemic time. It's not that the mind has gone away, that we have to reinvent it all over again. But sometimes our mind do get hit, and it's important that we find a way to, how do we shape it, how do we reinvent it, or how do we transform it so that we are able to work through our situation. See, if I ask a question saying where is the mind, we would probably be saying, oh, it's in the brain. Somewhere in the brain it is hidden there, or the brain is the mind. See, if a person is, if you take it as a personality, the personality, a person has three aspects. That's what the psychologists. A person has an intellect, a person has a will, a person has an emotion. And I believe that everybody here has intellect, has will, and has emotions. It's just that not all the three are in a balance. Almost for all of us, one of the three is predominant over the other. Okay? If intellect is dominant over the other two, then we identify the other person as, oh, he's an intellectual person. I've seen come across people whom we said, oh, he's an intellectual person. That means that person is high in intellect. If this person is high in will, that means then we have identified that person as, oh, he is a strong-willed person. If this person is strong or predominant or dominant in emotion, then we would have identified this person as, oh, he is an emotional person. There's always something there, and then it falls off when some feelings or emotions goes. That's one of the reasons why we are different, even as personality, that we have different aspects, but we are all having it in different balances, intellect, will, and emotion. Okay, but where does this all reside? Sometimes have we heard of testimony where we said, I've accepted Jesus Christ into my heart. And then we wonder if there is a science student there, the science student is wondering, heart? What does the heart do? Heart only pumps. Heart pumps blood, takes the blood and finds a way to pump it. Again, so what is Jesus doing inside the heart? Is he sitting there and pumping the blood? No, what we are trying to say is symbolically, we are trying to say, heart being the center of our life or the main aspect of our life, I invited Jesus into my heart, meaning I invited Jesus into the central portion of my life. And when we say that, we are using that as an analogy to explain what we want to explain. Very similar is mind. When we talk about mind, we many times think about brain, isn't it? And then we say, oh, where is this mind? Anywhere? Where is it there? And then we come to a point to say, oh, you know what? The brain is an organ, but the mind is not an organ. Okay, the brain is the physical place where the mind resides. So all of our thinking, the perception, the emotion, the memory, the imagination, all of those takes place within the brain, but the mind is used to refer it as a mind. Mind is often used to refer especially to the thought process of things. The mind is the awareness of the consciousness we know, the ability to control what we can do and know what we are doing and why we are doing. So mind is the place where we try to understand things. Okay, in our regular life, everyday life, we continue to think through all of this, isn't it? We do a lot of thought process, we do a lot of emotional process, and our mind is the center where all of this thinking process takes place. Though it's happening in the brain, we call that in our understanding, or you and I, we call it in our understanding as mind. Okay, and so we need to understand. So if somebody is talking about mind and saying, oh, where is this mind physically present? That means it's not one organ that is present. Okay, the process that the brain does, and we usually, where we accommodate what is mind, is the thought process of things. Okay, that is what is mind. And that's one of the reasons why we'll say, my mindset is not good. That means I'm dull, I'm not able to think through. I'm not working through, my mind is not working the way it is. So that's the difference. So let me put that straight up there. Say mind and brain. Also, we say reinvent mind. We are not talking about a physical organ here and how do we revive it. Money and medicine, you can reinvent it, you can purchase it, you can find a way to raise it, you can find a way to save it, you can find a way to buy it from a store. But when it comes to money, it's an internal process. It's an internal organ, internal organ. That's why sometimes the external things are easy to purchase or easy to buy in, but in the internal process, it takes time for us to process, to sink in, and it's a very important process to think through, because the actions that we do, the life that we live, all is capitalized from the way that we think and from the way that we have our attitude and from the way that we accommodate things. So that is one of the reasons why it's important that we start thinking about how has been our mind. Friends, what I call it as a formative mind. From the time we were born, from the time that we saw our parents or our caregiver, and then we heard them talk, we heard them relate with us, we heard them connect with us, our thought process has begun. We are trying to find a way to accommodate all of those things. And you know what? Our mind, what we call in psychological terms a junior, is so elastic in nature. It can be expanded to a point where you can accommodate everything that you see, everything that you hear, everything that you have talked. It can have all of those. It's just that when the new things come in, the old things are suppressed. Something between a computer, a difference between a computer and our mind. And let me tell you, a computer has a delete button. And then when we delete something, it goes away. And then you go to recycle bin and then empty the recycle bin. An illiterate person like me may not be able to pick it up. Maybe an IT professional is able to somewhere pick it up on the cloud and bring it back. Okay. But what is happening is our mind does not have a delete button. Let me tell you that. Okay. So when we say I've forgotten all of those, just there somewhere deep rooted. I'll give you an example. Just think with me that you're going on this path somewhere. You're walking across to a village now. Of course, in this pandemic time, don't walk. We're not allowed to walk. But then imagine with me, pastor is asking you to come for an evangelistic meeting, or you're going somewhere with your family, and then you're walking on this gully lane, and then suddenly you're getting a nice smell. And somewhere along that line, it triggers a smell of some food that you liked when you were very small. Can you imagine? Oh, you're going through this line and then you get a smell of something that you have tasted long time ago and you've cherished those, but you've forgotten about it. You don't have that taste anymore. Or you have not tasted like that anymore. Now what's happening to your mind? Now what's happening to your mouth? Is it watering? Is there a watering happening in your mouth when you think about it? Do you see how it is connected? Where was it for so many years? It was in the mind. When I triggered it, what happened? It came up. And then it gave you a signal of that taste. And when you thought of that taste, automatically your mouth watered, isn't it? See how it is connected? It all forms itself. With the surrounding influences, our mind is constantly forming itself. Let me give you another example. Maybe after you accepted the Lord, or after you come, you've forgotten to, you've forgotten come to a place where you will not sing a movie song. I know pastors listening to this, and pastor may be very careful what I'm trying to say. But then, you know what? After you have come to Gilgal AG Church and then you've forgotten, you don't want to sing a song, you've taken up this path of journey of following Christ, and you've made in your mind that you will not come to a point to sing a song. Okay? On an early morning, you're walking somewhere, or then on a Spotify, or somewhere along the line on a gully lane, you are hearing a rhythm or a music of that song. What happens? Without our own knowledge, we start humming that song, isn't it? 20 years, 25 years, or 15 years, you have not heard that song, you have not sung that song. From where did it come so quickly? Do you see how a mind is able to keep things? Do you see how a mind is able to capitalize on that? And it gets formed and it gets stored there and it remains there. Okay? And that's the power of the mind. It doesn't have a delete button. It's there, strongly there, and it continues to remain there. Maybe you want to pull it out or you don't want to pull it out. But let me also tell you, there are dangers to it. As you grew up, if somebody has said something about you, or somebody did something to you, or somebody backbited you, or somebody said something that you did not do, and somebody pulled you down, somebody whom you trusted left you and went away, what happens? There's a damage to the mind. There's a message that goes to the mind. And then there is hurt that happens. And then you end up getting hurt. And we carefully lock it in our Godrej lockers deep inside and keep it inside. Somewhere along the line, 5 years, 6 years down the line, you are coming across, you are going to a meeting or you're going somewhere and you find this person who has hurt you, who has ditched you, who has pulled you down. What happens immediately? What does your mind tell you? Immediately it picks it up. And then if you are hurt, you almost are gone there to that place where that person has hurt you. You are thinking about it. You are thinking about it with that pain that it creates, and then see how the mind is able to make you real and transports you to that place, and you are there, right there, living in that place. And when that happens, you look at that person and you don't want to see that person eye to eye because you know that this person has been very unfair to you. This person has hurt you. This person has said something bad to you. And so you want to turn your face and just move away. You don't want to get involved with that person. Why? Because you have not yet sorted that out. Okay, I am not getting in there. That's for probably another topic on forgiveness and inner healing and all of those things. But remember, mind is important. It plays a vital role in the shaping of our life. Having said that, the mind at this point of time, particularly during this pandemic, is going through a very tough time, isn't it? The present situation is very stressful. It hits the mind so much. This unseen enemy that is pounding on you or pounding on us, we have no idea where it is lurching. We go to a shop, we are going with careful attitude, we're trying to be careful, we don't want to touch anything because we don't know where is this fellow there. Or we don't know who is carrying the life has completely changed, isn't it? We have not faced a situation like this in this generation, you and me. Maybe if you are before 1918, maybe somebody can come and say, yes, we have faced this situation. But otherwise, I think a situation like this we have not faced. Imagine the stress that it puts on the mind, the fear of the unknown that it puts on your mind. Everything that you have learned and been formed is suddenly being questioned because we have no idea how to handle it with our mind and with our life. So the stress constantly comes. We are not able to live our life the way we live. We are not able to work the way we live, or we are not able to speak to the people the way we live. We are not able to fellowship with the people that we live. We are cut away from so many support systems that we had. Maybe our parents are far away, and we are questioning. Maybe our job is going away. There's so many things that is pounding our mind constantly. And it becomes such a difficult time because the stress is high. One of the reasons why a lot of people are not able to handle at this time, stressful time. The governments don't know how to handle. We don't know how to handle because it's all new for us. We were not prepared for a time like this. If our mind has seen it before, if our mind has capitalized on it before, if we had time, tolerance, to accept it, to have lived through it, to have faced through it, then maybe our mind was prepared. But we are almost hit to a point suddenly and we are stuck. there because we don't know and our mind is still struggling to understand what's happening here. Now, what happens when we are stressed? Friends, stress is a process of adjusting to or dealing with circumstances that disrupt or threaten to disrupt a person's physical or psychological function or a mind function. Let's keep it as mind functioning for our understanding. So you see that? And we are right at the time that has disrupted and threatened our life situation. Now, yesterday I was one of our friend here, just outside, living outside the campus. I had taken him to Baptist hospital because he's been having fever from last Friday. And he called me and said, "So will you be able to come and take me because I need help?" And I was asking, where are I could name his friends, so I was naming his friends. Where are they? And then he cried, saying, "Nobody is coming to take me, sir, and I understand. Would you be able to come or at least pray for me?" And then I talked to my wife, and then it was tough. It was a tough decision to take him in the car because I have no idea if this person is positive or negative. Imagine the stress that mind is going through. And then we went to Baptist hospital. I had to stay there for over 1.5 hours to do some tests. After all of those, they didn't do any of those tests. And then came by, but I realized the people staying there, the people there, the doctors, the healthcare workers, the nurses, the security guards, all of them are at risk, and they're all talking about it, completely masked with N95s and different shields and different dresses. But then we see so many people and standing there and watching people there. It was such a tough time to see the stress that they were going through. No wonder many people were saying, it's better that I take my life because I have no idea, because of the stigma that is attached to a COVID or to this pandemic. Friends, it is a tough time. If at all you're thinking, oh, this will pass away, or this is not a tough time, let me tell you, we're living in one of those perilous times. It's tough time out there. Hospitals don't know what to do. Many people don't know what to do. And hence, our mind also don't know what to do. You see how whatever we've been formed, now do you see how that formative mind is being stressed together? Tension, strain, or pressure from a situation that requires us to use, adapt, or develop new coping skills. And if we cannot develop new coping skills, then we go on this downward slope. That's why it's important as Christians as we are, as church as we are, being the salt and the light, because we learn to adapt and develop new coping skills so that we become the light and the salt to other people. A wonderful opportunity and a time to live at peace when there is no peace. Wonderful opportunity to know that the Lord who gives peace at all times. When we realize our mind is struggling to have peace anywhere, friends. Friends, when we don't know how this virus pandemic situation is going to unveil, then the stress is heightened to a higher level because of the fear of the unknown. And that's the struggle, and that's the huge block that we all have, especially in this situation. Let me just tell you a little about the stages of grief. What are the stages of stress that we have, and what is it that we are, or where are we? The first stage is called the alarm stage, the primary stage. This is the beginning of the stage. Now, our beginning of the stress or beginning of something, our body immediately gets into an alarm pattern. There's a red signal that goes by, and we know that there is a threat encounter, and we immediately find a way to coordinate something to fight or to flee away. The threat encounter, when that happens, the entire churning of the stomach happens, and then the nervous system and everything else sends urgent signals to the brain to say, what, either flight or flee. Some people also freeze in that place. Okay, we want to have a time where we are not able to face the situation. Example, accident. When we go through an accident, we fall down, we know that there has been a fracture, but at that immediate point of time, we don't get to feel that. We pick up and say, what is it that I need to do? Pick up the bike or pick up the family that is there and want to do something, because we are not looking at that There may be an immense pain because of the accident, but our brain is not giving those signals because we've gone to a primary alarm stage where we are trying to protect and find a way to work through that immediate situation. Stages of stress. 2. Resistance stage. Slowly, we realize that alarm stage fits away, our energy drops. We come to the reality, oh my goodness. And that's what has happened, friends, in our life. At March, February, March, when everybody was saying about what is happening in other countries, it did not sink in. At least it did not sink in into us or into me. Okay, because we thought that we are superhumans, isn't it? It does not affect us. The messages that we heard or that we gave saying, there is a wall around us, protection around us. It's not going to touch us. All that is true. But we realized when we saw that it touched us, it hit us, it hit our country, it hit our state. Suddenly there has been a lockdown, and then as we are sitting there, we realize life is not the same. No relief from alarm, energy sinks. We want to fight, we become impatient, we exasperate. Cutting short of sleep, weariness, exhaustion, anxiety, forgetfulness. All of this leads to cold as well. And nowadays, if you talk about cold, it's dangerous. Okay, somebody says cold, you sneeze before somebody, oh my goodness, everything window completely. This is what happens to us. We thought in the time of March, in the lockdown period, families are together, husbands and wives are together. For so many years, we did not have time to stay in the family with our children together. What a God-given opportunity, where all of us can be together, husband, wife, and children, and we're going to have a very, very good time, isn't it? We all would have thought, right? Maybe we all had a good time. But research indicate and our calls, helplines in our counseling school and our counseling center indicated it was otherwise. We just did not know how to handle our family. Alarm stage went by, resistance stage came in, impatience came in, exhaustion, anxiety came in. Oh, every day in and day out, I have to cook this, I have to make this. This person is always on my side. This person is always behind me, telling me to do this, telling me not to do this. These children are always there shouting. They just cannot go out. Imagine the exhaustion and the weariness that came up, that hit us. Domestic violence picked up. Problems between husband and wife. Children, child abuse picked up. So many issues that came by, and suddenly we realized, this is not a good idea. Putting them together like that for months together, it's not working. For some it worked. Thankfully for Gilgal AG Church and many others probably it worked. But it did not work for many people. We could get a lot of calls asking us how do we help. So the mind wasn't ready for it, for such a lockdown like what happened to us. We've been working so much and so much and so much. Suddenly we realized that we've locked down our mind. The formative stage or the formative mind was not able to handle all of those. And these influences are important as well, isn't it? And then some of them move to what is called an exhaustion stage. Completely tired, completely drained. And then came the hatred towards life. Our system breaks down. We are not able to think through. We are trying to sleep, but our mind is constantly working. Have you come across a situation like that where you go horizontal completely and you wake up very tired because you realize your brain has not stopped working. It has not rebooted itself. Have you come across situations like that? Isn't it? Sometimes. Sometimes we go through a stage of exhaustion. We just don't, and that is the time the heart disease, the blood pressure, and the ulcers, and all of those begin. That's one of the reasons why when people move from alarm stage to resistance and to exhaustion, many people think about killing themselves. They realize that it's not worth living. With the stigma or with the situation, maybe loans are above, different things, the pressure, joblessness, the things that has happened in life. Suddenly, they just don't know how to handle life anymore. Or they don't see a future in life. Your mind is trying to tell you that there is no future because your mind is not ready for it. You see how what it happens? The stress can come to a point where it can lead to heart disease, blood pressure, and heart disease. That's what we call it psychosomatic. The connection between the mind and the body, soma and the psyche, the mind and the body. There is always a connection. There was a time when people would only treat the body aspect. Oh, okay, you have a heart disease, work. Blood pressure, work. Now, what does the doctor say? Don't give stressful thoughts to this person. Don't add any more pressure. Don't give any bad news to this person. Why are they saying? They are trying to understand, oh, okay, there is a connection between the mind and the body. So when they are saying, don't give shocking news to this person immediately. It's not going to, because immediately that mind is not able to handle it. It shows up in the body. It affects the body, and that's the connection that's there, friends. We gone are the times when we can separate it and say mind is not connected to our functioning. No, it's very connected. It's absolutely connected. Or other ways, the influence of the mind, the complete mind. I was talking about this, isn't it? You remember this mind is always forming based on the surrounding influences, and that's what is called the formative mind. Constantly taking in information, constantly processing that information, constantly storing that information. Suddenly, this pandemic in the last 3 months are completely new information to many of us. So mind is searching and trying to see if there is a RAM somewhere there that has a similar situation. And suddenly mind realizes in our RAMs that we have developed from beginning, from our early stages, there are not existing situations like this. And so mind is gone out of an equilibrium, for many of them. And then trying to find a way, how do we handle this situation? Please understand, it's a difficult time for the mind, formative mind. So what are the symptoms of stress that comes? What are some things that we have to, or how do we identify? Where does it hit? What are some symptoms that come? And many of us may be able to identify in some of these symptoms. Cognitive symptoms or mindset, what we call it as the mindset. Have you come across people that say, I just cannot focus anymore in life because of this? That's a symptom of stress, inability to concentrate. Suddenly we realize that I don't have the strength to focus on a single thing on my life. Memory problems. We become very pessimistic. Have you lived with people who are pessimistic in nature? Is it nice to live with people who are pessimistic in nature, who have a negative attitude in nature? When a cup is half full, for them it's always half empty. They just cannot see that that cup is half full. Have you come across people like that? It's a symptom, cognitive symptom. Anxiety, constant worry. There is a mind is constantly worrying about different things. What will happen to my life? What will happen to my money? What will happen to the loan? What will happen to this? What will happen to my job? What will happen to my children? What will happen to my relationship? What will happen to my parents back there? What happened to my brothers and sister, my friends? Oh, what happened? What happened? What happened? So many things, and we end up constantly worrying, and that's cognitive symptom. Let me tell you, as you see people in the shop, or as you connect to people, your own friends, maybe there are a lot of worries behind the smile that they give to you, or behind the talk, the nice talk that they are talking to you. Friends, be aware as you continue to relate with people, understand that this is a situation where this mind is getting impounded with the various things. Not just that, emotional symptoms. Stress also affects us emotionally. One of the reasons why husbands and wives are going through stress situations, irritability, moodiness, agitation. We just cannot relax. Fidgety all the time, identifying the bad things all the time, wanting to pound on the other person all the time. You don't know how to let it go. You let it go on the other person. That's damaging in marital life. That's damaging in relationship, isn't it? We become so overwhelmed. We just don't know, and we can still be lonely in a crowd. Isolate ourselves. We may just wanting to have our own time, alone time. We don't want anybody to disturb. If somebody says something, we get irritated. If we get a phone call, we get irritated. Because of the unknown, we don't know if there is going to be a bad news from the other side. It's too much to handle. Just between the last week and this week in our own SABC alumni group, we have had at least 6 of them lost their loved ones. Either it could be the mother, or in one case it was the wife. But it all happened in 3 days' time. It was too much to handle. We almost came to a point. Morning there was a death, evening there was a death, and it was all our own alumni, relatives, and different things. And when they call us, or when we see that information, or somebody passes that information, we're wondering who's going to be next. In our own WhatsApp groups with our own alumni, they are asking, what's happening? How many people? Who's going to be next? That's how they're asking. Overwhelmed with the situation. Very tough to handle situations like this, isn't it? Go through depression and unhappiness and the struggle. If somebody passes away, you can't go and meet them. The struggle of so many complex things pounding on our life. That is a huge struggle, isn't it? Physical symptoms, not just cognitive, not just emotions, physically also. It shows up: aches, pains, diarrhea, constipation, nausea, dizziness. Pulse rate becomes more frequent, colds. Oximeter is something that they are wanting to use. Enough oxygen to take it in. Physically, they want you to work. It becomes a difficult situation, friends. It's not easy as we think it is. Now, let me tell you, I have not come here to show a bad picture. Okay, I have not come here to show a bleak picture or saying, oh, everything is down and out. No. I'm bringing us to a reality to start thinking about why, if not us, why there are other people who are going through distress. Why are we, as we turn the newspaper every day, why are we seeing so many deaths, and what is happening to these family members? You watch the news. It's a tough thing to watch the news, isn't it? One of the reasons why we got to be careful what we watch, what we hear. Taking in so many information like this for the sake of knowing the statistics of COVID is not appropriate. I think you've got enough information on reinventing your medicine, reinventing your money. I think now it's safe to go out of some of these paid news channels. That's there. It's constantly pounding on us various things that's happening. Not everything is out there that is real. And then comes behavioral symptoms as well. We either eat more or eat less. Have you come across people suddenly when they go through stress, they eat more or they eat less? Very recently in our counseling, we had to deal with a case where a mother called up and said, can you please talk to my daughter? She's only eating half dosa in the morning and one chapati in the afternoon. And many times she's just going off not eating anything in the night. Would you be able to talk with her? Behavioral symptoms. Sleeping too much or too little. Have you come across situations like that? You just don't know what to do. You end up sleeping. Just sleep is not coming by. Or always now more and more on the internet. And, it's too much to process, too much to think through, that we suffer from sleep isolation. Procrastination, substance abuse. Have you come across people who were, when there was this lockdown, just in near Kothanoor, in our own village, we realized in our neighborhood villages, what has happened is drugs have reached. We heard that, because the Iraq shops were closed, or when those were closed, MRP outlets were closed. What happened was there needs to be something that is fed, and substance abuse picked up. Or nervousness or nail biting. So these are all symptoms, friends, of our lives. Okay, it could be cognitive, it could be emotions, it could be physical, it could be emotional. Any of those things. But then all of these are always hitting on the mind. So what happens to our formative mind and life? This is what happens, friends. Internally and externally, there is a damage that is causes. Or internally, there is a stress that goes by and changes our life system. Externally, there is something that happens and changes our life system. There's so much of uncertainties in our life, isn't it? We're all uncertain. If I ask you a question, when will this go? Will you be able to give me an answer? I don't know an answer. Pessimism, negative self-doubt. Constantly, there's a negative, pessimistic attitude in us. Unrealistic expectations on each other. A lack of assertiveness. We just don't know because of the unknown. And perfections. Constantly wanting to muddle with things that are there, and that becomes difficult as well. Externally, our life has changed, isn't it? Completely changed. When you go now, you have to wear a mask and go. Life has changed completely. Relationship has changed. Going to a shop, you have to think through. You just cannot pick up a bike or a car and go by. Our work situations have changed, isn't it? Work from home became a popular factor. And then suddenly we realized that when May end came in, some of them lost their job. Some of them brought in a paper saying April, May, June, you will get 50% salary. Some of them said, we cannot give you any salary. March, April, we gave you. May, June, we cannot give you. June end, we realized that there were some people who said, we've lost our job. Very close to our community is another person who had to move out of Bangalore. They found a storage place to keep their things, and then they went to a farmhouse in Bangalore because they realized that schools are not going to start. His work is gone on a sixth and just don't know how to handle this. Just imagine, friends, life has completely taken a 360 degree. How do you think people will work? When we took loan, when we worked through different things, we knew and we assumed that next 15 years, 20 years, we would be able to pay up all of these loans. Suddenly you're sitting and wondering, where is my money coming from next month salary? Is this real? Yes, it is real. It may not have happened to some of us, but it is very true. Relationship problem, again, externally, because of stress. Financial issues, hectic schedule. Sometimes we thought that work from home, lockdown, we will get enough rest. But I'm sure many of you will vouch here and say, no, not at all. Work at home, work in the about the office, work mates won't be coming, so you need to do all of those. Children are there. Suddenly you are packed, you are stretched, you are drained. We don't know how to handle it, isn't it, friends? Isn't this real? So when they cannot cope with their mind, people end up looking for various options. And those are not healthy options out there. And that is the time as Christians we need to find a way to give help. That is when we are looking for help. That is where you and I play an important role in life. We need to have and be the source where we can be of help. Maybe it's a phone call. Maybe it's just saying something. Or maybe an email. Maybe a WhatsApp. Maybe giving something from our pockets. Maybe buying something and giving. Maybe Flipkarting them. Maybe sending an Amazon. It could be anything. Big basket. Anything it could. But when we are able to find a way to share and help, what happens? They find solace and comfort. And that's the difference that we can make, friends. So, what is this health of the mind, or what is mental health? It includes our emotional, psychological, and social well-being. It affects how we think, how we feel, and how we act. It also helps determine how we handle stress, how we relate with others, and how we make healthy choices in life. Friends, mental health is important at every stage of life, from childhood to adolescent and through adulthood, and even to the late stages of life. How healthy we are in the mind shows us how healthy we are physically and in relationship. Sometimes there is a thin line between stability and instability in our mind. It can easily slip over. We need to thank God that it does not slip over, and our mind is still healthy, friends. We need to appreciate what the Lord is doing in all of our lives. But understand, this is mental health. The health of our mind has to be strong and healthy, and the stress is important to understand, because how we handle stress tells us how we are able to be healthy mentally. But we realize that many people are going through difficult times. Second Chronicles chapter 32 and 33, I think, is a good passage to look at from the Old Testament on how the world has influenced some of their mind and what happened and how they were able to work things. Second Chronicles 32 talks about how Sennacherib threatened Jerusalem, and then how King Hezekiah deals with it. Good stories to learn, good things to understand. 33 talks about how Manasseh found a way to work things through. But then we are able to understand how the world influenced the formative mind and what is it that the Lord has in store for us. Okay, first chapter 32, let's look at verse 7 and 8. If you have Bible, you can look at it, or let me read that for you. You know what? Verse 7 and 8, it says, Second Chronicles 32, 7 and 8. Be strong and courageous, do not be afraid or discouraged, because of the king of Assyria and the vast army with him. Imagine the stress King Hezekiah is going through because of the vast army. So the stress, suddenly he realizes there's so many people that have come by. Imagine if so many people are trying to come and hit you. Suddenly you are threatened. You don't know how the future is going to be. But look at his attitude. Look at his mindset. Verse 7, and the vast army with him, for there is greater power with us than with him. See, look at the mindset of Hezekiah. He was very strong. He knew that there was somebody around him that he was protected. With him is only the arm of flesh, but with us is the Lord our God to help us and to fight our battles. The people gained confidence, the Bible says, from what Hezekiah, the king of Judah, said. See how well his perspective was. When one person was able to see the amazing hand of the Lord, the people's mindset also boosted up. People were no more getting alarmed at what was happening, because they realized that as he was building up Jerusalem, suddenly there was this Sennacherib that comes in and threatens him, and then he finds a way to work things. But between verse 8 and verse 22, something happened. Look at verse 22. Suddenly, he started building a lot of things. He started developing his Jerusalem. He saw the hand of the Lord upon his life and upon Jerusalem. And then he allowed the mind of the world to set upon his life. See what happened. Verse 22 and 23. See what it says. So the Lord saved Hezekiah and the people of Jerusalem from the hand of Sennacherib, king of Assyria, and from the hand of all others. He took care of them on every side. What an amazing verse, isn't it? Many brought offerings to Jerusalem for the Lord and valuable gifts for Hezekiah, king of Judah. From then on, he was highly regarded by all the nations. The entire country, entire world saw how the Lord fought for him. So imagine suddenly the money, the influence increasing in his life, the power, everything grew. Was 25. But Hezekiah's heart was proud. And he did not respond to the kindness shown him. Therefore, the Lord's wrath was on him and on Judah and Jerusalem. From where he fell to where in his formative mind. He allowed the world to stress, and he allowed the world to influence his mind. Suddenly he withdrew and he realized that, oh, my power, oh, my money, oh, my influence, it all happened because of natural tendency, for instance. This is a natural tendency. That's one of the reasons why people lose their lives. People end up going there through the life, because the ways of the world is always like this. I'm sure when your pastor preached on a Sunday sermon, you realize pastor is sometimes preaching things that you and I would have thought is not a reality. We just cannot live this way. You know why we are thinking like that? Because the ways of the world is not that way. Or when everybody says you have to take revenge, pastor says you have to forgive. That's not the way it is, pastor. What, pastor? You are living in another world. No. Friends, the life and the principles of the kingdom is always in stress and strain with the life and the principles of the world. But you know what is quite natural for us? Because we live in the world, we tend to side towards the world and not towards God's kingdom. And our mind, there is a pull and a push between coming to this side or going to this side. And many times we are happy to go this side because the majority of the people are here. And when we have to find a way to swim against the tide, is it easy? It's not easy, right? Swimming against the tide is always difficult. And that's what happened to King Hezekiah. It began well, but somewhere along the line allowed the world to influence. And many times our mind is also influenced like that. That's one of the reasons when we sit down and think and look at the pandemic and allow this, we forget what God is and how God can help us. Because suddenly we eliminate that in our mind. That's not giving us anything. Because the ways of the world is different. The statistics of the world is different. The thoughts of the world is different. And it becomes difficult, isn't it? Look at King Manasseh, chapter 33. Began well, but then he had kingship, he was influenced by power and money. Look at what he did. He rebuilt the high places his father Hezekiah had demolished. Hezekiah almost demolished everything. And then he ended up building up all of those evil practices that the king and his father had done. And amazing things, so many things that we cannot even read about. And thank God the Bible is able to tell everything black and white like that. He rebuilt the high places his father Hezekiah demolished. He also erected altars to the Baals. He bowed down to all the starry hosts and worshipped them. Imagine the king of the Lord's land doing like this. He built altars in the temple of the Lord, of which the Lord has said, "My name will remain just like." And then he went on. His heart, the Bible says, his heart became arrogant. Mindset was influenced by the ways of the world and the attraction of power. You remember the story in Galatians chapter 2 between Peter and Paul? What happens? Peter was doing good until the circumcision group came there. And once the circumcision group came there, then what did Peter do? See, chapter 2, 12 and 13. Peter, as a leader, he lived with Jesus. He knew how impartial Jesus was. But then he was influenced by the mindset that happened. Great leader as Peter. He could do that. Imagine how we could understand the mind. Look at verse 12 and 13 of Galatians chapter 2. For before certain men came from James, he used to eat with the Gentiles. That was his regular mindset. He had no problems. But when they arrived, he began to draw back and separate himself from the Gentiles. You know why? Because he was afraid of those who belonged to the circumcision. The other Jewish people joined him in this hypocrisy, so that by their hypocrisy even Barnabas was led astray. What a ministry cutting away. You see how it is. And Paul had to actually go back, and though his guru and his leader was Peter, he had to confront him and say, "What you're doing is wrong." Peter, such a big leader, of the church at that point of time, he was afraid and allowed the mindset to flow into the world and not into the God's principles. Friends, it's quite possible that it can happen this way. Remember, formative mind. Our mind gets influenced by various factors. So keep that in mind. Please understand that it's an important thing, but it can always be influenced by various factors. So what do we do? How do we deal with this formative mind? I want to begin by saying Philippians chapter 2 verse 3. Remember that verse? Have a mindset of Jesus Christ. Your attitude should be like that of Jesus Christ who came down. You remember that entire passage? Philippians chapter 2 verse 3. Have a mindset like Jesus Christ. What an amazing verse for us to understand. So there is a way to deal with this formative mind. How do we do that? We have a transformed mind. What we call it as the transformer. Allow the mindset to be transformed by what Jesus can do and trusting in Jesus and looking at God. And that way, we can have a transformed mind. How does that happen? Second Chronicles chapter 32 verse 26. Amazing verse. See, then Hezekiah repented of the pride of his from the formative mind, he becomes a transformed mind or transformative mind. What happens in one verse? See what happens. Then Hezekiah repented of the pride of his heart, the Bible says. Mind and heart are always used interchangeably in the Bible. Okay? As did the people of Jerusalem. So one person repented, the people of Jerusalem repented. Therefore, the Lord's wrath did not come on them during the days of Hezekiah. Amazing turnaround time, isn't it? Found a way. He was going the world way. Suddenly he realized what he's doing is wrong because he knew the hand of the Lord has left him. He came back to the mindset of the original, where he realized it's the Lord who's helping him. When he found a way to be transformed, then a big transformation happened in the nation. Second Chronicles chapter 33. 12 and 13. Look at what happened to Manasseh. Such a bad king. He even gave his son as a sacrifice. See what happened. In his distress, he sought the favor of the Lord, his God, and humbled himself greatly before the Lord of his ancestors. And when he prayed to him, the Lord was moved by his entreaty and listened to his prayer. The Bible says. A transformed mind. How from that mind he was able to transform himself completely. Same thing we can even see how Peter, when he went through this, and then when Peter is writing his epistle or his letter, he's talking about the mind. He's saying it needs to be a transformed mind. See what he says. 1:13. Therefore, with minds that are alert and fully sober, set your hope on the grace to be brought to you when Christ is revealed at his coming. He realized from formative mind, where the pull is always to the world, we need to allow Christ to transform our mind so that we are looking at mind differently. We don't have to allow these stresses of life to walk through our life. So what do we do? How do we work with those who are stressed, who are going through this pandemic? When you are relating with these people, what do we do? What is this formative mind doing? Understand, formative mind pull is always here. There's defeat in the eyes of the people. There's hopelessness, peacelessness, isn't it? Constant stress. They are saying that there is no future, and that's what the formative mind is always telling. And you and I are also not insulated from that. We could also, when we go through real life situation, we may look at life and say, oh God, my life is defeated. There's no hope to my life. There's no peace to my life. There's no future to my life. But if you are meeting people like that, with thoughts like that, please understand they are not different, because they are thinking the way the world thinks. And especially in this stressful situation, when you are looking at it, that's how the world sees. That the life is defeated. There's no life. It's another year. We have no idea, and we have no idea if vaccination is going to come or not. And we have no idea. We look at life and future and say it's completely hopeless. There's no peace. Friends, when we are talking to people, that is where people are. The pull is constantly there. And sometimes when we go through tough times, we end up being there as well. The formative mind. But please understand, we need to be transformed. There's a transformative mind. Then we need to pull people, we need to pull ourselves from there to here. Pull them here. Show them in Christ, and with His people, they are not alone. We need to be available to find a way to show Christ through our life and through our life. Isn't there a hope for us? Isn't there a future for us? Isn't there a peace for us? It's just that our mind is not able to think that way, friends. We forget that we have a hope. Our hope is not of this world, isn't it? Who holds our future? God, right? The peace that passeth all understanding. From where does it come? It's not out of our work, not out of the money, even not out of our family. It comes from above. That's one of the reasons the writer of Romans says this way, or Paul says this way, Romans chapter 12, verse 2. Isn't that a common verse or understanding that is there, isn't it? Romans chapter 12, verse 2. Do not conform to the pattern of this world. All the time we want to conform our formative mind. We end up getting pulled there. What does it say? But be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Friends, mind is getting impounded with so many things in today's world. We have no idea what future holds. But you and I have an idea who holds our future, isn't it? Who holds our mind? The Bible says we are always in his thoughts. You know, Ravi Zach used to say that there is a signature of God in every soul. Isn't that a beautiful word? There is a touch, a stamp of God in all of our lives. Sometimes our formative mind is not able to think through that way. But let us not lose focus of this. Let's be transformed by the renewing of our mind. When that happens, we can constantly move from the formative mind to the transformative mind. And that is where you and I have to be there, friends. So when you connect with people, when you talk to your own family members, when you feel that they are going through the stress, and when you see that there are symptoms, and when you think that they are not able to think through, please understand that is how people are. That is how the mind is. At some point of time, when you converse with them, show them that there is a light at the end of this tunnel. There is a hope. There is a future. There is a peace. And our mind plays a huge part in making them reinvent that. Okay, we need to reinvent our mind. Pull our mind from where we are and pull them to ensure that there is light. And when we do that, what an amazing life it would be, isn't it, friends? It's wonderful for us to understand that there is hope, there is life, there is future. There is so much out there. And let's not allow this pandemic situation to cloud our minds so much that we are not able to work at it differently. So please, as we reinvent our mind, let's come to a point to understand it's only with Christ we can renew our mind. We can move from the formative mind to the transformative mind. And when we constantly pull that, if you find that your spouse or your children are talking hopeless things, are saying it's just that, give them little time, allow them, because suddenly they realize this pull is always there, the stress is always there. Okay, we have not yet attained perfection. It's when we say in Christ we have become, everything has become new. That does not mean that the old doesn't catch up. Remember, the mind doesn't forget things. When triggers happen, we end up there. But that's the natural process. But identify and help yourself and help others to pull them towards this path, so that we see a hope and a future for all of us. Reinvent. Let us reinvent our mind. God bless you.